Hey, Katie and Kat here today to talk about our weekly mindset, which is going to be Serenity. So, Katie, do you want to kick us off with
Yeah,
our stone that represents that and kind of like the affirmations and meaning behind it?
I would love to. So we have different affirmation cards that go with all of our jewelry, and anything with Moss Agate has the Serenity card. So Moss Agate encourages tranquility and emotional balance by reminding you of the importance of both masculine and feminine energies. The calming vibe of the earthy hues in Moss Agate can help bring you closer to nature and offer a sense of focus and patience when you need to disconnect from the chaos.
Yes, and I wish if you're just listening to the podcast, you can't see it, but it also just happens to be a gorgeous stone. There's so many variations. You can maybe see it just a little on Katie. Both of us are wearing the necklace today, but it's got just swirls of greens and browns and whites, and even like kind of like some clear quartzy kind of crystal looks to it. So yeah, I'm really excited to talk about serenity and how we can incorporate that into our lives a little bit more.
Yeah, we've got some great questions today. I'm actually really curious to hear your answers because I feel like this is a mindset that I sometimes struggle with. Having anxiety and serenity doesn't necessarily come naturally to me. It's kind of a not necessarily forced, but I have to work at it a little more.
Yeah, for sure.
And I know that you're generally a more optimistic person. And so I just am excited to hear your thoughts.
Good.
So what does serenity mean to you?
I think serenity for me means not letting kind of like outside influences affect some of that, like that inner peace. And that's why, like, on the card, when we talk about it, this stone we use to represent this particular mindset for that reason, because of that kind of like vibration around nature and the earth. It just has a very, like, it's almost like nature's the perfect example of that. And when you look at people who kind of like embody certain attributes or characteristics, it's almost like, for me, I feel like Mother Earth is serenity a lot of the times. And again, like, she has her moments and we kind of like mess her up sometimes, but for the most part, like, you can't help but not kind of step into that vibration of serenity when you go outside. And the more you're kind of like surrounded in just that atmosphere and completely like disconnected from a lot of the stuff that we as humans have put in place, which can be great and fun in a lot of ways, but also it's, I think, important to try as much as we can to prioritize kind of like getting back to that, just kind of like feeling of inner peace a little bit more.
I love that. So some grounding almost.
Yes.
Represented
Yeah, for sure.
in a stone.
Do you feel like what's your relationship with the outdoors?
I love being outside, like specifically sunshine. If there is sunshine, I'm happy. I love the warmth. I love to just sit outside with my dogs and they'll just go crazy and do their thing, and I can just sit there and it's very peaceful and calming.
Yeah.
We used to live a little bit further out in the woods, we liked to say, and it was very, very peaceful. And even though there were neighbors around, it was so quiet and there were trees everywhere. And it really was the most healing thing to move out there because it just felt so serene and peaceful.
Yeah.
So I don't get to do that as much as I would like to anymore, but I do love being outside.
Nice. I feel like as we're like talking about it, I'm actually thinking, because I too like to think and believe that I love the outdoors. And I do. Like, I know I had those moments of feeling that serenity.
Yeah.
But there's also this, I don't love bugs and dirt. And I feel almost a little like, for some reason, when I'm in that atmosphere, I have less control.
Yeah.
And so it's a little bit of a rub for me. And again, I'm speaking like specifically of like camping. Like, that is something like we have definitely camped over the years. And I remember, like, this is really funny, but like when my husband and I first got married, we were like, oh yeah, like we love to camp, and we're like buying the stuff and going out with friends and like camping. And and I even did like as a girl growing up, you know, we did like the girls camp and things like that. And I like that. But again, it was always, I've always been like, I don't love bugs. Like, I don't like, I'm like, again, I'm like, but I'm not like a high maintenance chick. So I'm cool. I like camping, you know, but really I'm like, as I've gotten older, it's really, again, tapping into another attribute that I think we're going to talk about coming up here, but kind of like my own like intuition. I'm like, wait, do I really love camping? Or is that okay that I don't love camping, you know? And so I'm still like, our family did it recently. Like they kind of went and we stayed with them and we played with them kind of like during the day and we hung out and do the campfire thing. And again, I love being, but we didn't actually spend the night, which ironically was the night that we had that big tornado and everything. And so that it ended up everyone was fine. But I was like, oh, I followed my little intuition and that made me happy. And I was very happy to be inside my house when all of that was happening.
I bet.
So I don't know. It made me think like, does for some reason, like with the moss agate, I feel like there's this direct correlation with almost like the forest setting and the trees. And now I'm just kind of like thinking out loud, do we feel like you can still find that? Like, for example, I am much more of like a beach person outdoors. Yes. Like, I'm like, well, I know I do feel serenity at the beach in some ways, but in some ways not. And then I was thinking like, we have so many different mindsets kind of like within our collection. And I was trying to like go through some and I was like, I wonder if there is more like a different kind of like stone or symbol or mindset that I would maybe associate like with that atmosphere. And maybe it's different for every person. I don't know. But for some reason, I feel like serenity, moss, like I really do go to kind of like that more forest type setting. And I'm not sure. I mean,
there's moss in the forest.
Yes, which is true.
The green, I think green tends to be really calming, like green in houses and home decor and putting plants in your house. There's something about earthy green that can be really healing.
Yeah.
So maybe water and sand have a different vibe.
Yes.
I don't know.
I totally think, because I feel like too, like with the ocean specifically, you know, comparing, just talking about those two examples, there is this, for me, like it's more, what's a good, tumultuous. It's more unknown. It's like there is kind of like this level of like almost like danger, and you know, it's just like, and that's one of the reasons I think I love it so much. But
danger. Love it.
Love that danger. But yeah, I feel like it's got some, it's like a little more of a yin and yang effect, where it's like just the, like you said, the moss, the trees, the grounding, it's just, it is serenity. So I don't know, maybe there's other ways to kind of cultivate that, but for me, that's just kind of like where I definitely go and think, if I want to specifically focus on this mindset or this attribute, I think that's a great way to do it, is to just get outdoors. And like you said, even just like be around trees, like greenery, there's something about that that really does make a difference in our, like in our bodies and how we are reacting to kind of like our environment.
Yeah, for sure. I love that. Thank you.
That's good. Good thought.
So can you think of any examples of ways that you have maybe adjusted your mindset in order to feel more serenity?
Yeah, I think that same thing, recognizing those places and circumstances where you do feel that serenity, because I am curious, like if it is a lot, like I think it's a little more universally felt in that way, but I don't think I am never say never. I am rarely going to be the kind of person that it's like a one size fits all. And so I do think for people, you will be able to feel serenity in different environments and different ways. And so I think one of the reasons like the jewelry and the company and everything means so much to me is I'm still myself, like not always great at recognizing like what's happening to me internally. And I feel like having those little reminders that I'm wearing throughout the day is helping me to really focus on that and recognize that. And so it's just kind of keeping that in mind as we go throughout our days, it's like, what am I feeling right now? Where am I feeling it? Why? Like, what is happening around me? What is happening inside of me that's causing me to feel this certain emotion or attribute? And then I can like cultivate that a little bit more and try to replicate that again. And so again, it sounds like for both of us, I feel like we both have kind of like resonated with that, the greenery and the outdoor space. And so it's like, now that I've recognized that, I can go and I can be like, okay, try to incorporate more like live plants around me, which is really, really hard. I am not a great plant mom. So, but just again, those are something that I can be like, hey, I've identified this. I want to work, towards this, and finding those places where I can kind of like have that feeling more.
Do you think that you have to be specifically like in the forest or outside or in an environment where serenity just comes very naturally, or can you feel serenity in the chaos of life?
Yeah, great question. I will share my thoughts, and then I want to see if you have any thoughts on it. So before I forget, like when you were asking me that, I feel like yes and no. Yes, because that's where I think you will feel it in maybe greater abundance, and you have to be able to like not only experience that mindset, but then also recognize that that's what you're actually feeling in that moment. And so like doing that and putting yourself in that place where you are feeling that, recognizing it, then I think that kind of like can help you in the future. So yeah, maybe I don't have to go camping every time I'm wanting more serenity into my life, but I'm able to tap into that mindset more and recognize and understand those feelings. Like you said, maybe it's like just bring in more plants, or I even just do a little outdoor walk where there's hopefully some trees and some greenery or something like that.
I love that.
I don't know. Do you have any other thoughts on that?
No, that's I love that though, because then if once you've experienced it and you have a moment where you really know that you felt serenity, you can kind of pull from that in the back of your mind wherever, if you just need to feel something later on, you've already experienced it, you know what that feels like. You can bring that in intentionally when you need it. Yeah,
like even so, for example, like our Moss Agate pieces are a great way to do that. So if you're kind of like craving that, but like camping is just not on the radar today, you can just wear your necklace or your earrings and just kind of try to intentionally focus on that and feel into that vibration a little bit more throughout your day.
Awesome.
That's a good question.
Great. So how can you feel, this is kind of similar, but how can you feel serenity during the really busy moments where you might not have a lot of time to just sit and ponder or, go on a walk, but if you really just need to feel some of that peace and calm, what would you do to help bring that vibe back in?
I think I'm going to use the word meditation here, but really it's just those small little tweaks of like having a moment to like breathe. And again, like I just kind of will sometimes like whatever I'm wearing that day. And I know people like obviously like gemstone jewelry has been around for a long time. And I love that we've kind of approached it in this really beautiful kind of creative, fun space. But the reality is like, I do think people resonate with having those like kind of like tangible reminders. And so it is just like a little thing, and to be able to just take a minute and be like, okay, whatever's happening right now, like the intention I set for today was serenity. And so that is like anytime that I'm feeling kind of like out of that purpose of what I'm trying to focus on, like I can just have that moment and try to like remember, breathe into it, and it doesn't take that long. And that's one of the reasons that I'm still like, even though it sounds so simple, it's really not. But I do believe like the more we practice it, the better we can get at it.
That's perfect. I love that. I mean, it definitely is practice. It's not just I'm going to feel serene and great today. And life happens and it gets hard, and you have to really focus in on, okay, it's crazy, but I'm okay. I can kind of change my mind back to where I started.
Yeah. What about, go ahead. What are you going to say?
You're good.
I was thinking we haven't touched on this too much yet, and I can't even remember. Have you do yoga? Like I know you. I remember now. You've talked about that you've done, or maybe it was meditation. Remember when you were like kind of like going in the morning?
Yeah. Oh, yes, yes, yes.
That was yoga, right?
Yeah, it was kind of a little bit of both.
Okay.
I was in a workout group where one of the days we would go out, and they lived on this really beautiful property, and they had a lake right by them. And we'd put our yoga mats on the dock, and she would walk us through like this little morning meditation as we would do some stretching. And then she'd go through a little yoga practice right after. And it was so beautiful. It was like the best way to start my day.
Nice.
And I'm not like this big yogi. I couldn't teach somebody that myself, but I love to follow along the people that really do know what they're doing. And it really is just a very peaceful, very serene moment to be in. And I wish that was still going. I don't go to that group anymore, but it really was beautiful and such a great way to start the day.
Well, I wonder, like with Serenity, I'm like, I feel like that would actually be kind of aligned. And I recently reconnected with one of my cousins who lives in Kansas City, because I have like, I don't know, like 40 cousins all over the country now. You know, we grew up together and we get together every year. I know them, but you lose contact. And so we have like kind of, she was always around my age, you know, and she lives like now like 3 hours from me, which is crazy because we're both originally like from California and stuff, that we're both out here now with our families. But she is a yoga instructor, and she was telling me like how much it has like changed her whole almost like life kind of. It's almost like become, I don't know, this new spirituality and practice. And I was like, God, I really need to try it. And I feel like there's so many things like that. Like we're talking, I went to this networking event yesterday, and I was talking to this guy, and again, you know, like telling him about the business and stuff and gemstones. And because he was also into like he was wearing some, you know, and so we were talking about that, and we started talking about like just manifestation and some different things. And what did he say? He was asking about, he was like, oh yeah, you know, like meditation. And I was like, yeah, I don't like meditate a whole lot right now. And he just like he was like in shock. And he was like, isn't that like what your whole like business, you don't meditate? And I was like, I have never pretended to be something. I'm like, and I think maybe that's why I love this business. Like it's kind of like you teach what you need kind of like thing. And I'm like, I even told him, I used that phrase. I was like, I'm a Padawan. I'm like, I am still learning these practices, but I'm seeing the difference they're making in my life. And I love sharing that with other women. And maybe you are like, maybe you have like mastered a lot of these and these principles and the mindsets and the meditation. But I'm like, but I know there's still a lot of people out there that have not, you know, we're all on this journey. And so I'm like, I'm not super worried that I'm not like a master at this stuff at this point, because I feel like that's why I need this almost so much more, because it helps me to kind of like explore and get in those spaces a little bit more. Right. So I don't know, it's just a funny little reminder. I'm like, yeah, I don't know. I don't notice. I have never, I think I've done like one yoga class. I'm like, I would love to. I think that's like a great idea and something I want to look into, because I'm like, oh, I do feel like that would be, again, one of those places where I could probably step into to feel more serenity. But for right now, I haven't explored too much there yet.
Right. Well, with yoga, I feel like there's just this really powerful like mind, spirit, body type of connection where you're physically doing something, you're focusing your body on some position or movement, and then at the same time, it's kind of like a meditation in and of itself. You're just in a spot where you really can just think and breathe, and you're just focused on being in that moment, which is really interesting that's not a super common practice in a lot of other things, I feel like. And maybe it is for some people for sure, but for me, that's a time where I really do feel very focused and present. But I feel like you say that you don't meditate.
Yes, we talked about this. Yes.
Your meditation could definitely be something that looks a lot different from other people. And I know we've talked about that in previous episodes, but
for sure.
Yeah, so don't count yourself out.
Again, it's just like the fact, like, and again, we were both talking about, it was very implicit, like the actual, like sitting still, meditating, you know, thoughts, all of that kind of stuff. And he was just like, isn't that what your business is about? I'm like, Yes, but that doesn't mean I do it that way or am perfect at it. Like,
yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts on this. This really was so fun.
Yeah.
And thank you guys all for listening. Do you want to end us off with our Serenity affirmation?
Yeah, sure. I would love to. So our Serenity affirmation is, I inhale peace and exhale worry, which I love. So we hope you all have a wonderful week, and we will see you next time. Thanks for joining us.
Bye.